Hallelujah. Right, Handel's Messiah. Well, I talked about the Messiah on the Classic FM thing because it's not Handel's most exciting piece, but I think the Hallelujah chorus is, as someone said, I love the Messiah, and the Hallelujah chorus isn't even my favourite bit of it. It's pretty good, you know. Hallelujah chorus is one of those moments, Beethoven admired it, he sort of quotes it in the Missa Solemnis. The reason why the Hallelujah chorus is justly famous is the way that he sets the word hallelujah, because I don't think anyone had gone hallelujah before. Most people went hallelujah, you know, in this very kind of mellifluous way. And Handel sets it in a much more visceral hallelujah, in a much more rock and roll kind of way. And the rhythm of that piece is extraordinary. It's got this impetus that's in a way revolutionary. It's almost like the Rite of Spring in the 18th century. I often think there's a correlation between Handel and Stravinsky. They both have this wonderful charisma, this rhythmic power. Stravinsky wasn't a big fan of Handel, as a matter of fact. Right, the Bruckner symphonies. I've tried listening to them over the years and I still cannot comprehend the cult following Bruckner has. It says Connect Bath 1686. They go on to say his music is so long and so repetitive with endless harmonic transitions and devoid of a melody. Bruckner is long, I'll give him that. Repetitive, yes, he does use repetition. He often has these da 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 da, these sort of ostinato figures that go on and on. So yes, but in quite a modern way, I always think. Harmonic transitions, but the harmonic transitions are so surprising, and he takes you into these kind of harmonic labyrinths. You can never be quite sure where you're going to go with Bruckner. And he's great. He's weird, not boring though. Right. I love the music of Nikolai Myaskovsky, but his Symphony No. 3 is one of the most turgid and unrelievedly dark 45 minutes I've ever heard. Thankfully, found his groove after that. I don't know that piece, although Myaskovsky is rather good. I'll have to check out the Third Symphony and see if it is turgid. Someone doesn't like the Funeral March of Chopin's. As a Pole, says 1000 Milli. Sorry, my son just kicked a ball at the window. 1000 Milli says, as a Pole, I have to say that I hate this piece. It's extremely overrated, and I think Chopin has a lot better pieces than this one. Well, I don't agree with 1000 Milli. With all due respect, I think that the sonata is, as somebody says underneath, if you listen to the whole sonata, that really makes it shine. Yes, they're right. It says IDRPMD. That really makes it shine since the first two movements built. And the first movement of the Funeral March Sonata has this superb... You think it's in C sharp minor, and then it goes... wrenches you into B flat minor, and you got it, and so on. It's a breathless, thrilling, terrifying piece. The slow movement, the famous, well, Schumann was horrified by it because it seemed to have consecutive fifths there. 1/5, 2nd fifth. He thought that was unforgivable. Although it doesn't feel like a consecutive because of the way the bass is moving. So in other words, it's got this primitive, this sort of dark, primitive, like nothing else from that period. Brutal quality. It's an astonishing, radical piece. And the other thing, I love that moment where he goes, that chord, that sort of A major 7 comes out of nowhere. It's an augmented 6th, I guess. Yeah, fantastic. The harmony is so good. It always is with Chopin. Magnificent. So, yeah, I don't agree. Frederick Delius, says someone. Well, Delius perhaps does oversaturate with chromaticism so that it kind of drifts around. At his best, he's magnificent, and one can't dismiss Delius. I remember my old friend Tony Payne, who I've mentioned in another video, took me years ago to see The Mass of Life, conducted by Charles Groves. What an amazing piece. Delius is underrated. I think I'll leave it at that. 4 minutes and 33 seconds, someone said. That's a wonderful John Cage so-called silent piece, which is really all about the sounds of the auditorium being the piece of music. I guess that's what it means, that piece. It's a question, isn't it? That piece is an enormous question about what is music and what are we doing sitting here in a hall listening to somebody perform. It's a philosophical piece. The freaking Vivaldi mandolin concerti. I didn't have a thing against Baroque music, but I can't stand them. I think the problem is that they get wheeled out too often by classical radio stations, as this contributor Frisky Husky says. And I mean, I like Vivaldi, but he does perhaps repeat the same tropes a bit too often. Mahler 5 can't be described as boring. The only good thing is the epic trumpet solo opening, and the rest bores me to death. No, Jer Bearman, that can't be right. So Mahler 5, and I've actually just got the big score out, does indeed begin with this epic trumpet solo, much harder to play on the trumpet than the piano, and of course terrifying because you're on your own in front of an enormous orchestra and audience. And then the brass come in, and then we get and then we get these terrifying triplets all over the place. Then we get this wonderful tune. Da, 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 da. What's not to like? Okay, Chopin's Bourrée number 2. Chopin didn't write any bourrées. I don't know what that is. Any suggestions from my audience? That's a bit of a mystery. D, A, C, F sharp, G, D, G, A. The whole effing song. D, A, I think that, right, this shouldn't be C, it should be B, D, A, B, F sharp, G, D, G, A. In other words, Pachelbel's canon again, but get the notes right, Alabaster Nutsack. Because if Alabaster Nutsack, if you had written, are you saying it does this? Oh, actually, that's better, isn't it? So that would have a bit more D, A, C, F sharp. Well, it's a bit weird, but maybe he should have written that. Altruistic Waltz 144 says most of Schoenberg's Gurrelieder. I disagree. Gurrelieder's fabulous. And the opening of Gurrelieder is surely one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever composed. And I often think that if Schoenberg had died in 1910, we would surely say he's one of the most important late Romantic composers. It's sort of an irony because he's now almost entirely associated with creating 12 tonality, which he did much later in his life in the 1920s. But as a young composer, he was an astonishing late Romantic composer. Mahler was a big admirer of his music. So Gurrelieder is the big one. Check it out. The opening is prodigiously beautiful. Someone's put Nutcracker Tchaikovsky already collected several dislikes in posts like these before because of this, but it is just so boring, they say. No, it isn't. It's wonderful. All those tunes, tune after tune, and such vivid and beautiful orchestration and fabulously inventive rhythms and harmony. I love the Nutcracker. I've always thought there's a story about the pas de deux in the Nutcracker, which is that the story goes that Tchaikovsky was challenged to write a piece based on a falling scale. It was like a kind of bet that the main theme of the climactic pas de deux of the Nutcracker was based on a falling scale, and it's such a masterpiece because it has this kind of rock and roll opening, like a rock and roll ballad, and then this. And then you get the na 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 na. Yeah, marvellous. Right. Tchaikovsky himself thought it a trite work and hated it. Did he? I think he preferred the opera that it was paired with, which is called Iolanta, about a blind girl who doesn't realise she's blind. It is rather good, that piece. But I think of the two, I'd probably take the Nutcracker. It's fabulous. Stravinsky's Symphony of Psalms? No, it's a card-carrying masterpiece. Heard it live and it was quite boring, to be honest. No, it's not. It's amazing. It's got this amazing opening chord. Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's E minor. And then it's got ba 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 ba. Ah! I love the way it's a bit like the Rite of Spring, that thing. In the Rite of Spring, he loves these bitonal arpeggiated figures and these wonderful chord spacing. But it's not just that. The last movement, which goes on and on in this beautiful, ethereal way, it's like he reinvented religious music in that movement. Someone doesn't like Schubert's final quartet in G major. Dreary, they say. It isn't dreary. It's astonishing. Boulez Structures. Yeah, they're quite annoying, aren't they? I think Boulez wrote many amazing pieces. Rituel is fabulous, his late orchestral piece. I like Répond for ensemble and electronics. But Structure for two pianos is a hard pill to swallow. And Dvorak 9 slow movement. It's like someone you're talking with has a really long-winded story and then goes on 3 extra sidebars during said story. I don't think so. It begins with this beautiful, it's E major, and then he goes to the tritone, B flat. That's an inspired place to go. And again, the next chord, from back to E and then D flat major. So you've got these tertiary things, you're moving in thirds. Yeah. I said this about another piece, Mahler 1, I think, earlier. It evokes, it brings a world into view, those chords. I think I said this about, in a funny way, it's a bit like Lark Ascending too, which in its opening chords, which I talked about earlier on, it sort of ushers in a world, it evokes something. It's magic. Music is a kind of magic. It's like the spell is cast by these people, and then you're in this place, and you just have to sit back and enjoy it. It's magnificent. And don't sit there going, this is boring. Sit there and listen. Like Charles Ives once said, use your ears and, engage with the music, follow it, listen to it. Don't dismiss these things as boring. They're fabulous. Right, that's enough. There are some boring pieces out there, but I think very few pieces on this list are boring, really. I think they're mostly marvellous. Well, that's me talking about things that may or may not be boring. I hope this video was interesting, given that it was about boring things. Could you, as an audience, if you want me to do it, maybe request another video where I haven't thought about this, but where I perhaps choose some pieces that I find boring. That might be quite interesting. But I'll only do it if you want me to. And feel free to comment below about pieces that you find boring. It's an interesting conversation to have, so keep the comments coming.